Hello, BYU-Idaho students. My name is Brother Rao. I am a member of the BYU-Idaho Financial Aid team. February is Financial Aid Awareness Month. As part of our efforts to increase financial aid awareness on our campus, we are producing a few short videos to help students navigate some of the more challenging and even sometimes intimidating parts of financial aid. This video is to help students update their marital status or make other changes to the FAFSA after they have already submitted the FAFSA for the year. Before we get too far, we need to talk about a term called EFC, or Expected Family Contribution. EFC is essentially the amount that you and your family are expected to contribute to your own educational costs. EFC can be found by referring back to the confirmation email that you received after you filled out your FAFSA, and it can also be found in a couple of other places that we'll talk about later in the presentation. But either way, it's often important to make sure that you know what your EFC is so that you can make important decisions in regard to your financial aid. First question we're going to address is who benefits from updating their marital status after they've already submitted the FAFSA. If you were not married when you filled out the FAFSA but got married during the financial aid year, it may benefit you to update your FAFSA to reflect your married status. This is because financial aid awards are calculated differently for a dependent student who would still be dependent on their parents versus an independent student who is now married and that could change eligibility for things like Pell Grants, subsidized loans, and other financial aid. So there are some students that would also not benefit from updating the FAFSA in the middle of the financial aid year. These students would be dependent and independent students who already receive full Pell Grant. Again, this goes back to that EFC number that we talked about. In this example, the student is assigned an EFC of $26,751. That's a pretty high number for EFC, and this student would generally not qualify for Pell Grants or subsidized student loans. However, if this particular student were to be married, they can update their FAFSA and lower that number to be eligible for additional aid. However, if a student already has a zero EFC, they would not benefit from updating their marital status because they're already going to be getting the maximum amount of Pell Grants. If you have questions about where you would fall in this situation, you can also go to studentaid.gov and use the aid estimator to determine whether or not a marital status update on your FAFSA would be beneficial to you. Another question that we want to address is, are you required to update your marital status? The answer to that question is no. You're not required to update your FAFSA once you've already filled out the FAFSA for the given financial aid or academic year. You can, if you so choose, you can wait and just put your correct marital status on the next financial aid year when you fill out your FAFSA for that corresponding year. A couple of deadlines and cautions that we want all students on campus to be aware of. Students must be married by December 31st of the applicable financial aid year to be eligible to update their marital status. For example, for the 2022-2023 academic year, which is the one that we are in right now, students would have had to have been married by December 31st of 2022 to be eligible to update their marital status. The last little caution that we just want to make sure that everyone's aware, mostly for planning purposes, is to be aware that updating your marital status can cause delays and or late fees, and this is due to processing time. When you change anything on your FAFSA, the financial aid department has to make sure that the changes that you made are correct, and sometimes we have to collect documentation. And when we do need to collect documentation, that requires some processing time. And we just want to make sure that everyone's aware and that you plan ahead and make sure that all of your documents are turned in by the beginning of any semester or any payment deadline so that you can avoid any late fees or hassle with that. Next, we want to address how to update your FAFSA. If you need to make a correction to your marital status or anything else, really. It's a pretty easy process. You go to FAFSA.gov and log into your FSA account. At that point, you choose Make a Correction, and then go to the Student Demographics tab, and you change from I am single to I am married. This is going to cause an error code to pop up. you can just ignore that error code. When you update your marital status, it'll cause the FAFSA to generate an error code because your marital status is different than when you originally filed the FAFSA. That's completely okay. You're going to ignore that and just resubmit your FAFSA. Be aware that you will be required to provide some of your new spouse's information. Next question to address is what happens after you update your marital status or anything else really on your FAFSA. The BYU-Idaho Financial Aid Office will request documents to verify some of the information that you've changed. This could include household size, number in college, tax information, other income information. Once you submit the documents that we request to verify this, again, we will have to take some time. We'll have to review those documents and make sure that the information is all correct on your FAFSA so that you're all good to go. Copies of your financial information, tax returns, W-2s, and some other supporting documents may be required in this process. Most of the documents that we'll ask you for are pretty common, and they should be pretty easy to get rounded up and turned in. If you have any questions about the documents, if you find yourself in this process and are not sure what you're looking for, we're more than happy in the Financial Aid Office to provide you with information on what you need to do. Just to point out a couple of resources that are available to all students on BYU-Idaho's campus. And there is a recently married page on the financial aid webpage. It's a great resource, and most of the information I've talked about in this presentation is available there if you are looking to find that information later on. If you need any kind of information or guidance beyond what is available on the financial aid page, please feel free to visit us in the Financial Aid Office in Kimball 196. We're more than happy to help you, and we want to make sure that you're successful in your endeavors here at BYU-Idaho. Lastly, I just kind of wanted to cover a couple of frequently asked questions so that if you have some of these questions, we can just answer them here and now. The first one is, can I update my marital status on my FAFSA before I get married? No, you don't want to do that. You cannot update your marital status until you actually are married. You can do it the next day if you want, but don't do it before. The next one is what we talked about a little earlier. Where can I find my EFC? Again, your EFC would be available on the confirmation page that was sent to you when you filled out your FAFSA. And you can also find your EFC by logging into your FSA account. If you do have questions about your EFC or are unable to locate it, please give us a call or stop by the Financial Aid Office and we can quickly help you with that. Last question is, why would you not want to update your FAFSA to reflect a marital status change? This is a question that comes up once in a while because why wouldn't everyone want to do that? Well, it's like what we talked about a few minutes ago. If you already have a low EFC or already receiving full Pell Grant, it would just take up your time submitting the documentation and going through the process of updating your marital status change. And in the end, your financial aid offer and eligibility really wouldn't change. So we just want to make sure that students are aware of that. We in the Financial Aid Office wish you the best of luck and have a great semester.